everyone, welcome back to my channel. As usual, we're in the kitchen and it's Sunday at about 1 o'clock on a beautiful sunny cold day. Cold for us here. It's about, I think they said it was only going to be 16 degrees Celsius, which is cold. I'm cold and I've got a lot of warm clothes on, so I'm okay. I haven't been 100% well. I've caught this funny little bug thing that some of my grandchildren and children have had, and it's just like a really sore throat, runny nose, coughing, nothing major, but what it's done to me is all the coughing and sneezing has really made my chest hurt again, all the pulling I guess on my bones, so I'm a bit uncomfortable. That's all I'd say. I'm a bit uncomfortable. Nothing more than that really. It's just I'm aware that I've had a fracture. But for a few days I was pretty good, and then this hit. I'm just really glad that it didn't start while I was actually, soon after the accident, because I don't know how I would have coped with the pain. Every time, even just like a little hiccup used to hurt so much. But so I'm lucky it's waited till now to get to me, this little virus, whatever it is. So anyway, you are looking at my little girl, my darling Lottie, and she's wearing a very special outfit today. If you can't quite see it, I hope you can, because I'm pretty zoomed in. I'm almost on top of her. She's wearing a cream coloured fine cotton baby grow, and it's a crossover front, and it says in the middle of the front panel, it says "Welcome to the World," and that is done in embroidery. It's in I think it's grey. You know how there's that colour that you can't quite pick if it's grey or if it's a tanny colour? It's sort of like somewhere between those, and it says "Welcome to the World," and then around that, in sort of like an elliptical shape or oval shape, are some beautiful, very finely embroidered flowers, and I can see a little butterfly, I think, and maybe a bee, and some leaves. But what it's got is something I absolutely love, and that is that each flower, which is very small, is outlined in that grey colour. Very fine stitching, and it's just beautiful. She's wearing matching mittens on her little hand so she can't scratch herself, and she's wearing the matching bonnet as well. And on the bonnet is just some embroidery of the flowers, just a small amount, and around her face is the same beautiful picot edging in that grey. I'll call it grey from now on, and hopefully you can imagine like it's that grey browny sort of colour. Anyway, she's lying in her pram on a pink blanket that I've had for a long time, but you haven't seen it yet. I just took it out of its box and thought I would use it because it goes so nicely behind her while she's wearing this. And I've told you before, I'm such a blanket freak, really. I always see more blankets I want, and if I had another house to store them in, I would buy more blankets. I don't know what it is about blankets. They are beautiful things, aren't they? They're cozy, and I'm not sure what they represent, but whatever it is, I always want more. So I've stopped myself, and no, I haven't actually. Just recently I bought 2. Oh my goodness, how embarrassing. Anyway, yes, I have. So I haven't really stopped myself, have I? No. Anyway, this is an old one. Well, it's one I've had for a year or so. I just haven't used it yet. And the reason I haven't used it is that it came in a box, and it was so beautifully folded into the box. I couldn't bear to take it out of the box because I loved the way it looked in there. But last night when I was thinking about this video today, I thought, okay, today's the day. Let's take the blanket out. So I have. I don't think it will ever go back in the box, which means I probably won't even keep the box, but we'll see about that. I'm not sure. Because I can never fold anything back. I can fold baby clothes back, but not blankets. They never just fit in beautifully the way that they were originally put in the box. Anyway, the blanket is just a very fine, beautiful pink wool knit. It's just a normal knit stitch on the body of the blanket, and around the edge it's in garter stitch, and it's got kind of it's not so much scalloped as a little peaked edge. It just comes up and down, And that's it, it's just very plain. And it's a beautiful, very, very soft pink. Okay, so that's me describing what Lottie's wearing today, and you are looking at her beautiful little jelly cat bunny. This bunny came to us from Sue Drinkwater, I think, this one, and her name is Blossom. I should call her, I suppose. Or I could say its name is Blossom. But the reason I've come on today, which you might be able to see from the title and the description, is that I've been wanting to talk to you about how it feels to be the person who makes these babies. Because I haven't bought a baby from, well, I did once, I'll get into that. Yes, I just make these for other people generally, and then I've kept 3 for myself. But that's over 8 years of making these dolls. So I'll start at the beginning. Yeah, let me start at the very beginning. So at the very beginning, now just warn you, you might need a couple or something to get you through this, or fast forward if it gets too tedious. But at the very beginning was my life, when I was still able-bodied and I could do everything, and that was until I was 45. And I was very into making and doing and creating things, all sorts of things. I've told you before. I don't want to go on about that again. And then, of course, I'm not able to do those things anymore. And it was always felt wrong and frustrating to me that I couldn't make things like I wanted to. I still had all the ideas, but I just couldn't put them into practice. I've tried one-handed knitting and one-handed cross-stitch. But you know what? When you've been able to do those things easily and quickly, it is very frustrating. Very frustrating if I drop a stitch, or when I need to thread a needle, or all that stuff. It wasn't enough pleasure. It was more agony than fun. So I've given those away basically. And so it was just actually one of our general meetings at the Doll Club that a lady called Lynn Connolly came along. Was that her name, Lynn Conlon? Oh, I'm so sorry, Lynn, that's dreadful. I'm thinking of the Connolly sculpt, probably. Lynn Conlon came along, and she brought, I think, maybe only one reborn doll with her. And of course I'd heard of them before. This is going back 8 years, so it was in 2010. And I'd heard of them. I don't think I was too aware of them. I've collected a lot of different sorts of dolls, and still, well, not so much now because the room's pretty full. But yeah, she had this reborn doll, and she was talking all about the process of making them and what it involves. And she said she was going to have another weekend class coming up. I think it was just a few weeks away. That she did run these classes quite often, and you went for just 2 days of one weekend, but from very early, like get there at, I think it was 8 o'clock, until I can't remember how long in the day, 2 really long days. And she and her lovely husband Paul provided food in between, so we had breaks for morning tea and lunch and afternoon tea. So it was really, really lots of fun, and I think she could have, let me think how many people there were around the table. Maybe 8, something like that. She could accommodate 8 people, and she had one really big table, and she had a couple of the ovens to bake our babies, and she had a friend who helped her as well as her husband. So I thought and thought about it and thought, will I spend the money and give it a go? And I did, and I haven't looked back since. So that was 8 years ago, and we could choose whichever kit we wanted, and at the time, and even now, there's a kit that I love, and it's called the Barry Sculpt by Adri Sturty, somehow you say it properly. Lulu of Strawberry Moon Reborns knows how to say it, but I don't. Sturty. Anyway, we all say Stoetti. Her kit Barry, which was one of her early ones, obviously because it was 8 years ago, was the first doll that I made, and I absolutely fell in love with the process. I was so happy. It felt like walking on air. At last I could do something, and it felt really good, and I really had a brilliant weekend. We had lots of fun, and at the end of it I had this beautiful doll. He was gorgeous. I might be able to hunt out a picture of him and if I can, I'll put him at the end of the video. I think I called him Alexander, and I sold him on eBay, and he went to Brazil. So that was my first doll, and then I just kept going, didn't I? I just kept going and going, and as you know, I still make them. I love doing it. So that's how I got into it, but I loved it from the minute I started. For me, this hobby is, well, let me say it is a hobby for me, because I don't do it. It's not a job. I just do it because I love doing it. I work maybe a bit differently to lots of people. I don't want to do tons and tons of babies. I want to put everything into each baby that I'm doing. So I tend to just work on one at a time. I have tried doing two at once, but I just found it very unsatisfying. When I'm baking all the parts, I always stay near the oven. That was something Lynn said to us. Just stay, don't go away, just stay there. Make sure that nothing falls over or, anything goes wrong. So nothing has ever gone wrong. I'm very, very careful. So I can't actually go off painting another doll while I'm watching parts in the oven. So also, I don't know, I just like being completely involved in one baby. That's how I do it. I just am completely immersed in the one doll and how I want it to look. So I find, and also I think if I was doing two at a time, they would have similar colouring, wouldn't they? Because I think you use the same paint mix. I'm not sure how people do it, but I know people can even work on 3 or 4 at a time. I just don't. It's just not the way I like to do it. And also, so I just work on one at a time. I do it as a hobby. It's not to get the money, but obviously I think my work is worth something, so I ask for money when I sell these dolls. I have given a couple away because I love to do that. I love to just have someone to be really happy. But it's never to people who ask for them. It's always from my heart to theirs. It's never a stranger. It's never someone who tells me a sob story, because of course I wouldn't do that. I think that's so weird that people would do that. Ask a complete stranger for a doll. It's like going into a shop and saying, oh, I really like that dress, will you give it to me? Well, no, why would they? They've had to pay for it, and honestly these dolls cost a lot of money. Just the kits alone, and then everything that goes into it is a lot of money. I can't afford to, well, I don't want to give things away anyway, only if it's my decision. So that's just a little side topic, isn't it? A bit silly. Anyway, where were we up to? Oh, I know what I should say, and I should have said this right at the beginning, that this discussion was sort of triggered by Maria's nursery, who posted as a tag, I think there were maybe 10 questions or 5 questions or something like that. And as I've said before, I'm not really a tag person. I don't know if it's the format that annoys me, that I don't like to answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Or whether it's once you've heard a couple, especially if it's like, do you like coffee or hot chocolate? I think, I don't really care what you like. How rude is that? So now you know the true me. That is very rude of me, but really I don't care about that stuff. So I'm sort of a bit anti-tags. Although I do love the ones where you learn more about people, but I still don't like the format. So I decided I will still do her tag, because I appreciate that she went to the trouble to think of it and pose the questions. But I'll just talk in general about being a reborn artist. And before I go any further, I'd like to say that I feel like a fraud calling myself an artist, because my dad was an artist. He was a proper artist, a real artist, an artist who created from the beginning. He was very, very well known around the world, and we have a lot of his work still that we just couldn't part with. So we've kept a lot, and they're everywhere. Occasionally they even come up for sale on the internet, which is very fascinating to see. So he was a true artist, and he still had a job. He was a design engineer. He designed some lovely things. But as soon as he came home, he went out to his, well, it was actually an old garage where a car was meant to be, but we called it his, it was well, it was his workspace, and I think we called it the garage. I think we just said, oh, he's out in the garage. Daddy's in the garage, I think we used to say. And as soon as he got home from his proper paying job, he went out there and painted. And he was very good dad. He was involved in our lives. He helped my mum with lots of things, but he also spent a lot of time in the garage, and I spent a lot of my time there with him. He has painted me so often, and I think I've even showed you some of those paintings, all different styles and different mediums. So when I say I'm a reborn artist, I'm really only using that term because that's the general term that we all use, don't we, for people who make these dolls. But I don't feel that that's fully applicable to me. I feel like I'm not an artist. I feel I make dolls, but because I don't actually sculpt, I think that's truly artistic. And I paint, have vision about how I want the baby to look, and I bring that to life. But I don't feel that that's, I don't know how to explain. Hopefully you guys can figure it out, you know, what you think. So yeah, okay, so let's go back to this tag that isn't really a tag, but I might just have a sip of my tea. I'll show you my cup. There's my beautiful cup, and there's my tea. It looks quite strong there, but actually it's quite weak. I like really weak tea. Isn't that a cute cup? It's got the little lambs running all around it, and some flags or something. Anyway, cheers everybody. It's already gone a bit cold. I like it really, really hot. Anyway, it wets the whistle, doesn't it? So, okay, that's how I got started with Lynn Conlon, who was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I learnt a lot, and of course I've learnt a lot more in the last 8 years, because really that's the best way to learn, is you just keep trying things and practicing things. So once I got started with Lynn, I bought my supplies from her and lots of kits from her, and I started to sell on eBay. I never even thought about keeping a doll for myself. I just kept making them and selling them, and that was all good, and I learnt a lot about how to use the computer and stuff like that, getting to know eBay, and every time they made a change and made it more difficult, I thought, oh, this is horrible. Anyway, I decided when I started to hear about people getting scammed, about buyers saying that the doll didn't arrive or it wasn't as described and all that stuff, and then the seller would miss out, I thought, oh, this is a mug's game, it's not for me. And they put the fees up massively, and so I actually haven't sold on eBay for a long time. I'm not sure, a few years now. I just tend to sell through word of mouth, which is plenty enough for me, because as I said before, this isn't a business for me, it's just a hobby. It's just because I love babies, always have, like most of you, always, since I can ever remember, I've loved babies. Babies have been my absolute, I don't know, something in my heart. Well, I think maybe it's human nature that we love babies, so it certainly is for me, and I've always loved them. So to get a chance to be making these dolls that are so realistic is just fantastic for me. I completely love it. I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it, and I wish I did. I would love to sit all day and just paint. That would be my idea of heaven, but there's always so many other things to do. I'm sure you all know that too. Now I can see that I've already been yakking on for ages and I've hardly started, but I'll keep an eye on the time, and probably have to join 2 videos together, I think, because my camera, at the way I've got it set at the moment, I think it does like 29 minutes, and if I set it up to go any longer, I think the quality goes down. You have to choose one or the other, so I'll just go for a bit longer. So one of the questions was, what is my nursery name and why did I choose it? Well, actually it was just my it was my nursery name, not my YouTube name, not my YouTube channel name. So I chose it after thinking about, coming up with all sorts of names, thinking, oh, that's it. But then I finally just settled on Baby Bunting. And I don't know why. I think because it just comes from an old nursery rhyme. And I love, to look back and just acknowledge, all the nice things about being a little girl back then with nursery rhymes and things. So I think that's just why I chose it. So that's me, Baby Bunting Nursery. I used to be Baby Bunting Reborn Nursery, and I still am. But sometimes I drop the reborn because of, do you remember there was that kerfuffle a while ago about somebody, I think in America, claimed that they had a, they had a patent on the word reborn and no one else was allowed to use it. So I just dropped it from my name, and sometimes I put it in and sometimes I don't. But anyway, that's me and that's my channel name. Now, oh yes, what about which sculptor do I like the best? I suppose that's a bit relevant, but you know, it's changed so much and there are so many that I like. I would have to say that I probably admire Bonnie Brown, like everybody else does, more than any other sculptor. It doesn't mean I love every one of her sculpts, but it means that I admire her talent in that she can create babies that look completely different to each other. There's no set pattern. The only way you can say that a baby might be Bonnie Brown's is that it's stunningly realistic and different, because each of her kits is like that, and I think that's just a real talent. With a lot of other sculptors, you can always pick it's their doll because they have that look, because they're quite similar. But with Bonnie Brown, I think she's just incredible. She has an incredible eye for detail. And also, of course, we all love Laura Lee Eagles. I've got a lot of her kits here. And I love, well, now I've done this Natalie Blick one. I love Natalie Blick. And, this one, meaning Lottie. Sorry, that was a bit rude too, wasn't it? So Lottie is the Marianne kit by Natalie Blick. I'd never done one of her kits before. I haven't done any Ping Lau kits, and I haven't done any Cassie Brace kits. So there's still a few sculptors I'd like to do, and I will one day, if I live long enough, that is, because you know, it takes me a little while to do these babies. If I just sit down on my bottom and work and work and work, it doesn't take long. But because I have, you know, a busy life, aside from doll making and YouTube, you know, it does take a while. When you have lots of grandchildren and lots of children and lots of friends and activities, and you know, my doll club is a big part of my life as well, and a house to look after and all that stuff. It all takes time. It just takes ages, and I must admit I'm a bit slow at things. Not my brain so much, but slow at physically doing things. So maybe that makes everything take a bit longer. Yeah. So what else can I tell you about this? The way I work. I put a lot into my babies. They're not that I don't just make them to to a pattern. I don't do the same thing with every baby. It depends on each baby what I do, and it just depends how I feel towards the baby, because obviously we all just want them to look real, don't we? So that's what I strive for. I don't like to paint them too garishly. I like to paint them so that you look at them and think, you don't even notice they're painted, you just think, oh yeah, that's skin. It's, you know, it's not, yeah, I think that's just my style. I just like little babies, so I prefer to do babies who look newish. And yeah, and do you know what? I think I may even be finished before the half hour. Let me just check my list in case there's anything else. Oh, do I take customs? Well, I'm sort of yes and no. I don't actually take customs as such, in that the people I tend to make dolls for now are people who know me and know my work and like my style. Because as you know, we all have different styles in painting, and they're all valid and lovely, absolutely no doubt about that, and there's a style that suits everyone. So the people I make babies for really like the way I do it, and of course if they want certain coloured eyes or certain type of mohair or scratches or, you know, anything like that, I'm really happy to do that. But I don't really, you know, customs are tricky, and everyone said this before me. Customs are tricky in that if someone tells me I want lots of modelling, your idea of lots of modelling might not be the same as mine, and I don't ever want to disappoint anyone. I want each person who gets one of my dolls to be absolutely delighted. So it's safer if someone prefers if someone likes my style, and then I can make adjustments to, you know, with details for that person. I think that's the closest I would come to a custom. I wouldn't take a full custom with details of everything, because I honestly wouldn't know how to exactly do what's in your head, and I don't want anyone to ever be sad with something that I've made for them. And so, there was an interesting little question about how do I work. Is it in silence, or watching telly, or YouTube, or, well, you know, I have my phone next to me, and I watch YouTube, and I tend to watch things where I don't have to give a comment, you know, to people, different channels probably, and often when the what do you call it, when the video's finished, I nearly said when the show's finished, when the video's finished, I just don't even notice it stopped because I'm so engrossed in what I'm doing. So I sit in silence working for ages and then think, oh, right, that's finished. So that's probably how I work, either in silence or with YouTube. I don't work in front of the telly because I'm not set up where there's a television anyway. But I don't mix the two things, and it's easy just to have my phone on the side. Now, you know what? If I stop now, we could just do it in this one video, which is probably the best idea. Although there's probably a million other things I want to say, but that's probably enough for now. If you have any questions or comments, please just, if there's something I've, glaringly obvious that I haven't talked about, please just put it down and I'll do another video. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you've liked looking at my little girl. Maybe I'll zoom out a wee bit. Let's see if we can do that. It always makes me a bit nervous knowing I'm going to have to zoom. Let's just go out a bit. That's not too bad. I want you to be able to see her feet, but I think I've got her too low down in the pram. Let's just see. Let's go out a tiny weeny bit more, and then I'll say goodbye because I am running out of time. There we are, that's not too bad. You can just see her feet there. They're covered in this beautiful little baby growth. There we are, everyone. So thank you if you've lasted till now. I really appreciate you listening. And if you haven't, that's fine, because this obviously is not an interesting video for everybody. Maybe just a few people would like it. So thank you. Oh, yes, quickly, I must say, I've posted off the giveaway prize to Suzanne KJ88. Did I say Suzanne again? Susan KJ88. Get that into my head, silly girl. So we posted that on yesterday, Saturday, and it's only going to Queensland, which is the state above my state, New South Wales. And I really don't know how long it's going to take, but maybe by the end of the week we'll see her opening. I can't wait. I'm excited. It's brilliant. I love doing that giveaway. No backlash, nobody complaining. It was lovely. I think I'll do that again. So just randomly at some stage, just I'll just pick a time and just do a giveaway for all my lovely commenters and subscribers. So everyone, thank you very much for coming to visit me. Oops, it's about to end. I love you all. Please take care and be kind to each other, and see you soon. Bye bye.